She stood in the middle of a glittering ballroom filled with champagne, diamonds, and people who believed money gave them permission to humiliate anyone they wanted. A black woman, alone, silent. They laughed at her clothes. They pointed at her skin. They shoved a glass into her hand and told her to serve, as if her presence itself was an offense. Every insult landed like a slap. Every stare screamed the same message. You don't belong here. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from a familiar ache. The kind that comes from being judged before you're known, erased before you're heard. She could feel hundreds of eyes pressing her into a corner she had been forced into her whole life. And still, she didn't move. She didn't speak. Because in that silence, something dangerous was forming. Stay until the end. Because in a moment, the people mocking her will realize they humiliated the one person who can destroy everything they own. Danielle Reed knew the moment she stepped through the doors that something was off. It wasn't the chandeliers. Those were expected. Crystal dripping light over polished marble floors. It wasn't the string quartet gliding through a soft arrangement meant to sound expensive without being distracting. And it wasn't the designer gowns or tuxedos stitched with generational money. It was the pause, that half second of silence when conversation stumbled, when laughter caught in throats, when eyes lifted, lingered, and quietly recalculated. Danielle felt it the way she always did, like a shift in air pressure, like a door closing somewhere behind her, even though she was standing in plain sight. She stood alone near the edge of the ballroom, her phone resting lightly against her ear, her posture calm. She wore a pale blush dress, elegant but understated. No diamonds, no entourage, no visible markers of power. To them, that absence told a story. "Hey, you!" The voice was sharp, casual, cruel in the way only people who feel untouchable can be. "Go serve." Laughter rippled outward, uneven at first, then louder. A woman in navy silk nudged her husband. He chuckled, champagne sloshing dangerously close to his cuff. Someone else smirked. A few guests looked away, pretending not to notice, which somehow made it worse. Danielle didn't turn. She didn't flinch. She simply adjusted the phone slightly closer to her lips and said quietly, "Stay on the line. I'll be a moment." That more than anything seemed to irritate them. "Well?" the woman called again, louder now. "What kind of staff just stands there?" Danielle let the words pass through her like wind. She'd heard versions of them her entire life. In boardrooms, in hotel lobbies, in elevators where people clutched their bags tighter when she stepped inside. At 24, a banker had asked her whose assistant she was. At 32, a competitor had introduced her on stage as someone from operations. At 41, she no longer corrected people immediately. Silence, she had learned, made space for truth. A man in a tuxedo stepped forward, salt and pepper hair and cufflinks that probably cost more than most people's cars. He extended his empty glass toward her. "Top this off, sweetheart." The command wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of certainty, of someone who had never been told no by a woman who looked like her. Danielle's eyes flicked briefly to the glass, then back to his face. Nothing else. A few guests shifted. A young server across the room froze, fingers tightening around a silver tray. His jaw set hard. He recognized the look in Danielle's eyes. Not fear, not confusion, but something sharper. Measured. Someone whispered near the piano, "She doesn't look like staff." Another replied, "Then why isn't she saying anything?" Because she didn't have to. The woman in navy clapped her hands lightly, enjoying the attention. "Come on now. Don't be shy. If you're going to stand there, at least be useful." The words hit harder than the others. Useful, as if existence itself needed justification. Danielle felt the familiar weight settle in her chest. Not anger, not yet. Something colder, more deliberate. Across the room, phones began to lift. Subtle at first, screens glowing discreetly near clutches and jacket pockets. People sensed it too, that this moment was crossing a line, that whatever happened next would not stay in this room. "Is she lost?" someone murmured. "Wrong entrance," another laughed. Danielle inhaled slowly. She thought of her mother, who had taught her how to walk into hostile rooms with her head high and her voice steady. She thought of the nights she'd slept in her office, building something no one thought she was capable of leading. She thought of the deal, months of negotiations, endless revisions, the careful patience it had taken to get this far. And she thought of why she had come alone tonight. The Hawthorne Gala wasn't just a celebration, it was a test. Across the ballroom, Margaret Hawthorne sat like a queen surveying her court, pearls gleaming against her collarbone. Her gaze landed on Danielle with thinly veiled annoyance. "Who let staff wander onto the floor?" she said, not bothering to lower her voice. Her husband chuckled beside her. "Standards are slipping." Their son, Lucas, leaned back in his chair, smirk curling at the corner of his mouth. "She's standing like she owns the place." That line drew a few nervous laughs. Not everyone joined in this time. Danielle's phone buzzed softly. A message flashed across the screen. "All systems ready. Just say the word." She locked the screen again without responding. Not yet. The server by the dessert table finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "She's not staff." Gasps scattered through the room. The words didn't stop the cruelty, but they cracked it. Margaret Hawthorne waved him off. "Please, you don't know who belongs here." Danielle remained still, her hands loosely folded in front of her now, chin lifted slightly. She could feel the room watching her more closely, measuring her silence, mistaking restraint for weakness. Lucas stood, pushing his chair back with a scrape that echoed across the marble floor. "Listen," he said, stepping closer. "You've had enough attention for one night. Why don't you leave before security makes it awkward?" The threat hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. Phones lifted higher now. No one pretended anymore. Danielle felt the final piece fall into place. She reached into her clutch, not hurriedly, not dramatically, and drew out her phone. The movement alone was enough to quiet the room. Every eye followed her hand. She pressed it to her ear. "Olivia," she said calmly, "log this." Margaret frowned. "What is she doing?" Danielle didn't look at her. "Effective immediately," she continued, her voice steady. "Prepare to terminate the partnership." The word terminate sliced through the ballroom. "What partnership?" someone whispered. Lucas laughed too loudly. "Oh, please, this is a bluff." Danielle finally lifted her eyes, meeting his directly. "Stay tuned," she said softly. The silence that followed was different now. Not mocking, not amused, waiting. "Before we move into what happens next, let me ask you something. Because moments like this don't just happen in stories. They happen in real life, quietly, every day. Have you ever seen someone judged or dismissed because of their race before anyone knew who they really were? Yes or no? And when prejudice finally meets accountability, do you believe justice should happen publicly? Yes or no? The word terminate didn't echo, it sank. Like a stone dropped into deep water, it pulled the room down with it, slowly at first, then all at once. "What did she just say?" someone whispered near the bar. Lucas Hawthorne laughed again, but the sound cracked halfway through. "You're all hearing things. This is a stunt." Danielle Reed didn't react. She stood exactly where she was, phone still in her hand, her posture relaxed in a way that unsettled people far more than anger ever could. Anger was familiar. Anger was something they knew how to dismiss. This was different. Margaret Hawthorne's smile tightened. "Security," she called lightly, as if ordering another glass of wine. "This woman is disrupting the evening." No one moved. Two guards near the entrance exchanged a glance. Their eyes flicked, not to Danielle, but to the growing forest of raised phones. Red recording lights blinked steadily now, no longer hidden. Guests weren't just watching, they were documenting. The patriarch, Richard Hawthorne, leaned forward in his chair, his voice low and edged with irritation. "Let's not be dramatic, Miss whoever you are. You've made your point. Now leave." Danielle lowered her phone and met his gaze for the first time. "You don't know my point yet," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried because the room had gone silent. Somewhere near the dessert table, Marcus, the young black server, set his tray down with a soft clink. His hands were shaking, but he didn't step back this time. He stayed where he was, a quiet line drawn in the marble floor. "This isn't right," he said, louder now. "She hasn't said a single disrespectful thing." Margaret snapped her head toward him. This is not your concern. It is, Marcus replied, because you're humiliating her. Gasps rippled outward. A few guests nodded. Others looked away, uncomfortable but unable to deny what they were seeing. Lucas scoffed. You see? She's turned the staff against us. Classic. Danielle felt the familiar sting at that word. Classic. As if racism were a script she was expected to follow. She thought of the first time she'd been escorted out of a luxury store because someone assumed she couldn't afford what she was holding. She thought of the investor who once told her she was articulate for her background. She thought of how many times she'd been told to prove she belonged in rooms that were built to exclude her. Tonight wasn't about proving anything. It was about consequences. Her phone vibrated again. Another message from Olivia. Press is monitoring. We can go public in under 60 seconds. Danielle didn't reply. Richard Hawthorne stood now, clearly losing patience. This is absurd, he said sharply. You expect us to believe you have any authority over a deal of that magnitude? Danielle tilted her head slightly. Authority isn't something you expect, she replied. It's something you recognize too late. The room shifted again. A woman near the staircase, early 30s, emerald satin, stepped forward. I saw her invitation, she said. She entered like everyone else. Margaret's eyes flashed. You're mistaken. No, the woman said. I'm not. That was the moment the balance tipped. Whispers turned into murmurs. Murmurs into open commentary. They never even asked who she was. They just assumed. This is going to explode online. Lucas felt it slipping. He stepped closer to Danielle, invading her space deliberately. You think standing there quietly makes you powerful? He sneered. It doesn't. It just makes you invisible. Danielle didn't step back. She met his eyes, steady and unblinking. Invisible people don't make you this nervous, she said. A sharp intake of breath cut through the crowd. Lucas's smirk faltered, just for a second, but cameras caught it. Margaret tried to laugh it off. Enough theater, she said. If you won't leave, then at least stop pretending you belong here. That was when Richard reached for a glass. He lifted it slowly, deliberately, holding it out toward Danielle, in the same mocking gesture his son had used earlier. Serve, he said. The word hit the room like a slap. Before anyone could react, Lucas grabbed another glass and shoved it forward, his hands shaking with barely contained fury. Go on, he said. You wanted to stay. Earn it. Danielle felt the heat rise then, not to her face but behind her eyes. A deep, controlled burn. She looked down at the glass hovering inches from her dress. Then the champagne tipped, just enough. A single splash dotted the silk at her waist. The room exploded. Oh my God! Did he just? That's assault! Phones shot higher. Someone near the bar cursed under their breath. Another voice rang out clearly. This is on camera! Marcus stepped forward without thinking, his voice breaking. Stop it! Richard turned on him. You're finished. No, Danielle said quietly. Every head snapped toward her. That, she continued, her gaze fixed on the wet mark on her dress, was your last mistake. She lifted her phone again and pressed the speaker button. The sound of Olivia's voice filled the ballroom. Calm, precise, unmistakably professional. Reed Capital confirms preparation for immediate withdrawal from the Hawthorne partnership, Olivia said. All documentation is queued, awaiting final confirmation. The color drained from Margaret's face. This is ridiculous, she whispered. She's bluffing. Danielle raised her eyes slowly, letting the room see her fully for the first time. Not as a silhouette, not as an assumption, but as a decision maker. Do you know why I didn't introduce myself when you insulted me? She asked. No one answered. Because I wanted to know how you treat people when you think they have no power. Silence. And now, she continued, the world gets to see it too. She tapped the screen once. Confirm, she said. A beat. Then Olivia's voice again, sharper now. Confirmed. Termination initiated. Public statement scheduled for release. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Margaret collapsed back into her chair, pearls rattling against the table. Richard stared at Danielle as if she had physically struck him. Lucas took a step back, his bravado evaporating. No, he muttered. You can't. Danielle finally took a step forward, not aggressively, not triumphantly, just close enough. "I can," she said, "and I just did." The applause didn't start right away. It crept in, a few claps, then more. Then a wave, steady, undeniable, not for spectacle, but for something rarer, dignity. Danielle didn't smile. She didn't bow. She simply stood there as the Hawthorne family unraveled in front of everyone they'd ever wanted to impress. And the night, once built to celebrate their power, belonged to someone they had tried to erase. The applause didn't explode. It settled. Like rain after a storm, steady and unmistakable, washing over the ballroom until there was no corner left untouched by what had just happened. The Hawthorne Gala, once designed to celebrate legacy and wealth, had been rewritten in a single night. Danielle Reed stood at the center of it, still calm, still composed. The wet mark on her dress had begun to dry, but she didn't look down again. She had already moved past it. What mattered now wasn't humiliation reversed, it was truth revealed. Margaret Hawthorne stared at the table in front of her, fingers trembling as they clutched her pearls. Richard Hawthorne looked smaller somehow, his shoulders slumped, his eyes darting toward the phone still raised around the room. Lucas hadn't spoken since Danielle confirmed the termination. He stood frozen, as if the weight of his own words had finally found him. Danielle didn't linger. She turned and walked toward the exit, heels striking marble with quiet certainty. The guard stepped aside without being asked. Guests parted instinctively, some nodding in respect, others whispering, "That's real power." Just before she reached the doors, Danielle paused. She turned back, not to the Hawthornes, but to the room. "I want to say one thing," she said. The noise fell away completely. "This wasn't about a deal," Danielle continued, "and it wasn't about revenge." Her eyes moved across the crowd, meeting faces that had laughed, faces that had stayed silent, faces that had finally spoken up. "It was about a choice," she said. "You chose who I was before you knew anything about me, and tonight you saw the cost of that choice." She didn't wait for applause this time. She left the ballroom quietly. Behind her, chaos erupted. Not loud, not dramatic, but frantic. Lawyers were called. Statements were drafted and redrafted. The Hawthorne Foundation's phones rang without pause. Within minutes, social media lit up with clips, headlines forming faster than anyone could stop them. By morning, the story was everywhere. Black CEO cancels $900 million deal after racial humiliation at charity gala. Silence, then consequences, a masterclass in dignity. Danielle watched none of it. She stood in her hotel room overlooking Manhattan, phone resting on the table untouched. The city moved below her, taxis, sirens, lights blinking in endless motion. For the first time that night, she allowed herself to exhale fully. Her phone buzzed again. This time she answered. "Are you okay?" Olivia asked. Danielle smiled faintly. "I am." There was a pause. "The backlash is intense," Olivia said, "but so is the support. Investors are calling. People are listening." Danielle closed her eyes briefly. "That's all I wanted," she said, "for people to listen." She hung up and leaned against the window, letting the quiet settle. She thought of Marcus, the young server who had found his voice when it mattered. She thought of the woman in emerald satin who had stepped forward when it was easier not to. She thought of every person watching the video who had recognized themselves in that room, on one side or the other. A week later, Danielle returned to the same ballroom. Not for a gala, for a meeting. This time the room was smaller. No chandeliers, no champagne. Just a long table and a group of people who had been invited for a different reason. Marcus sat near the end, hands folded, posture straighter than she remembered. He looked nervous but determined. "You didn't have to come," he said when Danielle entered. "I wanted to," she replied. Danielle took her seat and looked around the table. Community leaders, investors, nonprofit directors, people who understood that accountability didn't end with exposure. "It's easy to cancel a deal," Danielle began. "It's harder to build something better in its place." She announced the creation of a new initiative, one focused on equitable investment, on funding Black-led businesses that had been dismissed, overlooked, underestimated, not as charity, as partnership. The room didn't erupt in applause. It leaned forward. Marcus swallowed. "Why me?" he asked quietly. Danielle met his eyes. Because you spoke up when it cost you something, she said. That's leadership. Tears welled in his eyes. He nodded once, unable to speak. The Hawthorne Foundation never recovered, but something else did. Weeks later, Danielle received a message from a young woman in Paris, then another from London, then Chicago, then Johannesburg. People who had seen the video, people who had lived that moment in different rooms, different languages, the same silence. One message stayed with her. I never knew silence could sound like strength until I saw you. Danielle saved it, not as a reminder of victory, but of responsibility. Because power, she knew now more than ever, wasn't just the ability to end something. It was the courage to begin again, differently. And somewhere out there, someone was watching, learning, choosing. Before we end, let me ask you, because stories like this only matter if they make us reflect. How did this story make you feel? Do you think Danielle did the right thing by staying silent until the end? Did this story change the way you think about racism and power, even a little? If you felt something while listening or reading this, comment 111 below so I know you stayed until the end. And tell me, which country are you watching from? If this story moved you, please share it, because someone else out there might need to hear it today.